Greetings and salutations, everyone. Welcome back. Here's our quick change questions things. Hobbs, did you just wake up? You just did. Oh, you're a big boy. Could be problematic later on here. But this is our quick change questions section here. Just a little down-to-earth section. Just explain some thoughts about the game and whatnot. But let's start with our first question of the day. Why this game in particular? This is a game I had wanted to do in particular for a while. It's actually a game I really enjoy, and I figured it was a nice way to kind of spice things up a bit. It's got, you know, it's a real fighting game, as it were. You take all the weapons around and whatnot. Like, it's pretty different from the usual, like, what we would expect of an RPG type of game, but it makes for a pretty good action RPG game. And there's realistically not a whole lot of games that are like Crisis Core. And I stand by the fact that you really don't need to have played Final Fantasy VII at all to understand this game. It actually stands pretty well by itself. But that's just me. It's a biased opinion, I admit that. I actually really like this game a lot. Next question, how did you find this game? So this game was one of the reasons I got a PSP during my late teenage years, as it were, like end of high school. It was this was a game I had wanted for a while. It looked really cool, and of course, you know, it's a Final Fantasy game. Like, typically, those don't go wrong. They're pretty solid games. And really happy, like, I got the game. This is definitely one of the longest games I've played. Like, I have the longest time on, as far as, like, PSP games are concerned. It's just a pretty solid experience overall. Just so many good things in it, honestly. And I think, like, I don't know, it's got everything, like, it hits all the right notes, as it were. It's got a very good story, very good, very good action sequences and whatnot, and reasons to play the game again, as it were, because there's the two difficulty modes. You have normal and hard. There's also a new game plus mode. Once you go through all the credits and whatnot, you can keep on going with all the stuff you've already acquired, like levels, the Magicite. I think Magicite, I could be wrong about that. And the New Game Plus mode is useful when you want to do, if you want to do 100% like all the missions, because you need to get quite a good number of levels to achieve some of the really difficult stuff, and it's pretty crazy, but basically, there's reasons to keep on going. I could handle this by myself, Sephiroth. It's fine. Nothing to see here. There's also, we haven't even gone really into much of it, but there's like summon abilities and whatnot as well that work within the digital mind wheel thing. Like, it's pretty crazy. You can get a bunch of summoning stuff happening if you do all these missions, get all the right stuff and whatnot. But let's move on to the next question. How easy is this game? It's kind of, I don't know, it's a really tricky one. I think a good number of people can get into it pretty easily. I don't know, if you try to do 100% all the missions, you might find it's a bit of difficult. If you tried to play like I did, it is going to be difficult, because, like, I'm a little bit underleveled. Even I had to do some missions to go get some necessary equipment. But it's not difficult in the way of, like, you know, figuring out what buttons do which, how combinations work. You just kind of play your own style, and for the most part, you're just hitting one button continuously, honestly. So it's not that it's difficult in the way of, mechanically speaking, anybody can start this game pretty easily. It's just later on down the road, like, you know, the end of the game, or some of these missions, like, it can be a little bit more difficult. And in rare cases, like some of these maps, like the Portal Severance here, even I had to pull up a map so I can be like, where is my last thing, so I could keep track of where I was going and whatnot. So it can be confusing in that regard. Other than that, I don't think it's difficult mechanically speaking. But that's that. Next question. Will I play other Final Fantasy VII games? Honestly, no. Like, here's the problem, right? There's the enemy way out there. Here's the problem with the other Final Fantasy VII games, right? You have Final Fantasy VII, the original, like back on the PlayStation 1, and the main issue with that is that it has a lot of translation issues, so the story's not really completely clear as to what's going on. Not to mention that I don't think graphically it's held up too well over the years. Like it's a solid game. It just 7, 8, and 9 each have their own individual problems. And kind of the English translation was a big one for number 7, and it was like, it's one of the reasons I don't prefer it over 8 or 9, because the story is a little bit confusing, because you're not sure what the words were meant to be said. Not to mention, I know that, like, in the Japanese version, like, because the Japanese characters, you can fit much more of a word with fewer, essentially in a smaller space. They can get a lot more of the story going on, and I'm not very good with learning a second language. That's just fact right there. So, I'm not going to play the original Final Fantasy VII. I'm not going to play Final Fantasy VII Remake because that's only part of a story. That's not to say that Final Fantasy VII Remake is bad in any way. It's actually done a lot of good things, not only for sort of the old-time fans who have loved the original game since the dawn of time, but it introduces some new stuff in there as well that both new fans and old fans can enjoy and figure out what the story is. But the problem is that the game's incomplete, so they're still working on essentially episode... What are you doing, buddy? Stop it. But they're essentially working on episode 2 of the game, and it's a big game. It's not a small thing. But like, I don't want to have to go through and play part of a story when it's not completed, and have to wait for who knows how long till the next one shows up. And it's legitimately anybody's guess as to when episode 2 of Final Fantasy VII Remake comes out. And then pretty much any other Final Fantasy VII game, not worth it to play through. This is, as far as the spin-offs are concerned, this is the one that you should play, or at least you should watch through and get through it and all that. Plus, if you like having emotions, like, it hits you pretty hard at the end, even if you know what it's coming. That's a real tearjerker right there. And I think we just move on to the last question, sort of what I like and dislike about this game. I'll be pretty honest, I'm pretty biased. I don't have any real dislikes about this game in particular. Like I mentioned before, I love the action of it. I love the fighting sequence, even if it's not an RPG. Like, and don't get me wrong, I love my old-time RPG games, especially the Japanese RPGs. But this is a really solid game overall. He is being troublesome. Hang on. Alright, I gave him some food. Hopefully he goes into a food coma and then just decides to sleep it all off. But where was I? Alright, likes. Like, this, even though this game is, you play as mostly as a guy with a physical sword and all that, you're typically, you have freedom to balance out the character. You can make him more magic user-based if you want to. You can go straight up for just the physical attacks and give him have different abilities and whatnot. Like, there's plenty of ways to build out Zack and make him the character you still want him to be. It's actually, like, really cool. I didn't think they would really do that, but like it's pretty nice. Not to mention like all these missions I've been doing, like these are all, you know, they're all side things, but they each have like a little mission briefing that gives you an idea of, you know, why you're going on these missions. As you can see, like there's the boss there, but if we just mosey on around, you remember to this fight, you can do this optional fight, which unlocks awesome missions that you can do. Like little things like that within the missions to make them quite enjoyable and whatnot. I'm glad I got to show that off. I was hoping I'd see that mission around. I didn't remember which one it was. But there's reasons to explore the map and at least be aware of, you know, what the maps look like, to see where treasure chests are and all that too. Like, because there's only items that you can only acquire if you find them in the worlds, you know, in these world maps. So, just little things like that. I mean, the only real dislike I have is that this game hasn't been remastered or remade onto like a console system, and I really think it should. But we'll see what Final Fantasy VII Remake brings to the table. See if we get any Zack time like we do here. But seriously, I would love this game to be remastered, remade completely if it has to come down to that. Just see it on the big screen, because it's a solid game, and I don't think it's gotten really enough attention out there as a game by itself. And like I said before, like I really think this game, this game can stand up on its own with the story and everything about it. That you don't need the Final Fantasy VII knowledge. There's a lot of shoutouts, you know, to its predecessor / sequel, as it were. But that's gonna be it. It's been a good journey. I've had a lot of fun with doing this, but it's time to move on to the next project. But I should take a second and explain sort of my new uploading schedule that I'm going to be doing. I've been working with 4 projects essentially at the same time doing this, and when I had problems with both Mega Man Zero and Crisis Core briefly, that kind of put me in a bit of a downer mood. I was like, that was devastating, losing all the data for Mega Man Zero especially. And it started to, these projects started to feel more like work rather than fun, and I really do these for fun. I'm not doing this because someone asked me to, you know, look at these games and, you know, visit them again or play them for the first time. I play these because I want to. And I started thinking about, like, maybe I need to reduce the number of projects that I continually have going on at once. So I'm going to go down to 3 games, essentially, that I'm playing at the same time instead of the 4. And I think that'll help, because it takes me, you figure each episode's somewhere between 20 to 25 minutes long. And that's usually 20 to 25 minutes of me playing each game, meaning that even with it's just 3 projects, it's going to take me an hour just to get footage recorded, best case scenario. And then it usually, like, the editing, processing, it usually takes a couple hours to get through that. I'd say, like, with four projects, it's usually looking at 6 hours before all the videos have been edited and processed completely. Uploading is actually not that terrible, usually, like, within 2 hours, honestly. Like, sometimes the internet's a little wonky, but uploading's usually not the problem. It's usually just the recording and the editing, and that started to feel a lot more work-based. I started to actually feel like it was becoming a chore to record these videos. That's how bad it got. And I thought, maybe I just need to reduce my workload a little bit. And just kind of take a breather, relax, give me some of that extra time so I can take care of other things I have to do on a daily basis. Not to mention streaming and whatnot, because of COVID-19, that gives me some free time to at least look at some other things to do with my time. But there you go, that's just my little update in the future. But hopefully that'll keep me sane and it won't burn me out from playing video games, which should never be a thing. Everyone should always be playing video games no matter what. That's my theory in life. Hobbs would be better cat if he actually played video games, but he doesn't. Yeah, I see you, buddy. Anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for coming on this journey with me. We'll be getting ready for our next game shortly in the future. Not sure exactly when, but get excited for that and be excited for the rest of the projects that we'll be finishing up. Until then, hope you're enjoying your day, and I will see you next time. Take care, everyone.